Hello and welcome to Idaho Bigfoot. I'm your host, Jep. This is my third take on the video, Why Haven't Trail Cameras Captured Bigfoot? The first time there were a ton of flies out, it was really difficult to get the video down pat. And the second time was just a minute ago when I realized my audio was peaking. So hopefully the audio sounds okay. I am not an audio guy, I'm not a video guy, if I'm being completely honest. I'm learning. So if I get anything wrong, if anything doesn't sound good, I apologize. So, to start us off here, the topic of today's video is one that I feel is really important to talk about. A lot of people, especially outdoorsmen, are very skeptical of the existence of Bigfoot because, if you'll get wolves, coyotes, mountain lions, and elk go up to your cameras, why won't a Sasquatch do so? Well, today's video, we are looking at it from the perspective of the trail cameras themselves. Why don't they work? But we will be coming out with a second video on the same line of thought about trail cameras and Sasquatch, but instead from the point of view of the Sasquatch. Why don't they go up to trail cameras? And we won't be covering the same points that we're covering here, obviously, but they do apply to the same overall point. And that is Sasquatch don't go up the trail cameras. And there's a number of reasons why, and there's a number of ways you can look at it. This is just one of them, and this is a part of a bigger picture. That video will be very interesting to try and put together. To give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, it's not because, well, they know what a camera is. How could they? I hear people saying that. It's like, no. How would they know that? I do know that with Native Americans, I apologize if I get anything wrong. I only just had the thought now. But I remember hearing in the Wild West days when cameras were just starting to become a thing, when new territories were being made and expanded upon. And it's a sad part of history, but still, they thought, or at least some people thought, that cameras stole your soul. So that's an interesting point of view. But as far as Bigfoot goes, I don't see why they'd understand what a picture is, how a camera works. But they may view it as a kind of trap. There were a bunch of different traps that were very dangerous, even if you were just to walk by them, not even step into it. We think of the foothold like bear traps, off goes a limb. Well, that's not the only type of traps that were used for bear or any other kind of animal. You're dealing with traps that would utilize guns. And so, if you step by it just a little bit too roughly, which Sasquatch has been known in the past to sometimes just stomp their feet. That's what I heard once in one national forest. I went over what happened, and I believe it was expedition... Well, was it one or two? I'm trying to remember. I'll annotate it here. But in one of the expedition videos, I went over what happened. I want to say it was two. But anyway, I heard loud crashing through the brush, and it wasn't on a marked trail that was not very far away. So you'd think if it were a human or an animal of some sort, that it would be walking on the trail. Animals like to take the path of least resistance. Humans like to do that. It was just kind of odd behavior. So that's what some people, when I was talking with them about the encounter, that was what really told them that was a Bigfoot. Of course, I don't really know, but that's what it sounded like. It sounded like a very large, weighed down man huffing and puffing as he was walking down the hill. It was very unique, and there's no trail there. So it was breaking trail, but it wasn't running. It was just casually walking, it sounded like. So that was very strange. But Bigfoot is somewhat well known for stomping their feet at times. I don't know why they do it sometimes and not at other times. Maybe because they're aware of people, and that's why they're quiet. And then when they aren't, they're like any of us, and we'll stomp our feet. I know a few people who stomp their feet really loudly. I'm one of those people. But if you do that around some of these traps, they go off. And there's a whole bunch of traps that were very deadly. But in today's video, we're talking about the trail cameras themselves. And being somebody who's used trail cameras a number of times in the past, I'm a bit of an enthusiast on trail cameras. I will be setting up more trail cameras in the next few years. I'm really looking forward to actually getting out there and making a lot of expedition videos. This is something that I feel is really important to talk about. Tim Farmer, in one of the Monster Quest episodes, talked about how, with the thousands and thousands of trail cameras out there, you think, we might get a picture of one. And I really like Tim Farmer, by the way. I love his show. At least last time I saw it, it's been a little bit, but I remember really liking him and his wife. They do a good job on their videos. That intro of theirs is really catchy. But, that's a very good point. So let's start us off with saying that these two cameras right here, this is the Campark T20-1, yeah, and this is the Guard Pro E5. These are two trail cameras that I've been using a lot. And one of them works really well and the other one does not. One of them is a bit less than the other one, but it did better. And that's this Campark here. The Campark has been a fantastic camera and the Guard Pro has not been. And there are 2 points that I want to talk about. The first one is that some cameras are glitchy and just don't work, and that is the Guard Pro. You could have a lot of activity in an area, but because of the fact that this camera takes pictures of everything, even just slight movement of leaves, you won't know about it. And that's the second point. If there are enough false triggers, then a subject in the background may be missed. Even the foreground, because if you are just skipping through, you're looking at all these video files, and I'm not talking about hundreds, folks. I'm not even talking about thousands. I'm talking about tens of thousands of pictures. It's insane. One time I had 10,000, another time I think I had 13,000. It's just nuts. If there's something that walks right in front of the camera, but the thumbnail doesn't show that, you may scroll right by it and not even know about it. And it's annoying. I did my best to look through every single picture, but frankly, I know I'm not the only person that's had this problem. I gave it way too much leeway. I should have immediately contacted Guard Pro, but I didn't. I'm going to try and get into contact with them soon, and hopefully they'll do the right thing and replace the camera, fix it, something. But not being an American brand, I don't have high hopes for that. But it just is not a great camera in the sense that, yes, it has gotten some great captures. I call him a chinchilla chipmunk, frankly, because that's kind of what they look like. But it's a bushy-tailed wood rat. It's kind of a grayish, well, kind of looks like a chinchilla, but it's not. Longer, thinner body, and it's a really neat creature. I got a video of one of those. I'll try and find them if I can and post them here so you can see them. But I got one of those. I got a snowshoe hare. I got a deer. And I think that's about it for this camera. That were really good captures. And I love those captures. I think they looked great. It's a fantastic quality video. But because of how many triggers I'd get that were just false, it was just a little bit of a movement in the trees. Or the sun hitting it or something. I just couldn't go through all the pictures and really give them the time that they deserved. The Campark rarely went off because of something in front of it that wasn't an animal, which was nice. It wasn't like the leaves moved a little bit and bing, it's going to turn right on. It's not that sensitive, but it is good enough to where it's gotten deer and ruffed grouse and squirrels and those kind of things on camera. So it is sensitive enough to capture animals, but not so sensitive that it just captures everything, which is really, really, really nice. But unfortunately, the Guard Pro is just not that way. So 2 big points. That some are glitchy and just don't work. And if there are enough false triggers, then a subject in the background may be missed. Some cameras just don't work at all, and the video is really bad looking, really glitchy. Some of them just shut down and won't work. I mean, it's technology. You are always going to have issues with technology. That does not mean that the brand as a whole or the camera itself, all of them that have been made, at least, are bad. But if you have one that's bad, then it doesn't matter how good all the other ones are. The one that you have is bad. Don't try and stick it out. Don't try and make it work. get your money back right away, folks. Just don't bother. There's a Wild Game Innovations big old camera that we've had for a number of years, and we have gotten a black bear and a moose and a few deer on it. But frankly, it's a horrible camera. I've tried using it, and I've walked right in front of the camera. I've walked right in front of it numerous times. The dogs ran in front of it numerous times, and it did not capture us once. It's an older camera, but still, some of them are just bad, and it just takes some time, and sometimes they'll just fall apart internally, and they just don't work anymore. Other times you'll get a camera that lasts for many, many years. It's a crapshoot, unfortunately. It's just how it is. But the bottom line is that some trail cameras just aren't very good. I've heard a lot of issues with Stealth Cam. I've heard a lot of issues with Bushnell. I've heard a lot of issues with all the big brands that you can think of. And so for every good one, you're probably going to find a bad one. So another point is that some trail cameras have a short triggering distance. The advertising for trail cameras can be very deceptive. Sometimes they'll say 85-foot triggering distance or 85-foot IR, and that makes you think that, I can capture something at, 85 feet. Not necessarily. If it's moving really quickly or it's a big animal like a moose and it's trotting through, yeah, you'll probably catch that because it's enough movement to get the camera's attention. However, if you're dealing with a slow-moving subject, probably not. And just because the IR reaches out to 85 feet does not mean the motion sensor reaches out to 85 feet. Especially if it's a really good camera, like I said earlier, it has to be sensitive enough to capture animal movement, but not so sensitive that it captures everything else. So you're going to have to do something to get its attention. If it's close, then slow movement will sometimes just work right away. That's what's happened with this guy. Slow-moving elk have walked by, and I've caught him right away. However, if you're at a distance, it could very well move by and the camera just wouldn't pick it up because it's not moving fast enough. It just is the same amount of movement as you'll see from leaves or branches, and so it doesn't meet the threshold for the camera to capture it. Man, it's blustery outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but wow. Jeez. Okay. And sometimes the distances don't even match the actual performance, like the IR. Sometimes it doesn't even reach 85 feet. So you really have to be careful with marketing for trail cameras. Another thing you need to look out for is the megapixel count. 35 megapixels! Oh my gosh, that's incredible. But when you look at it, the picture quality is the same as a 5 megapixel camera. So sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. You really got to play it by ear, unfortunately. Don't go for the big numbers. Go for one that has a lot of good reviews. That's about the best advice I can give you. One thing's for sure, this simple little cam park, fantastic job. Is it going to be the best looking as far as video and photo quality goes? No. But it gets the job done. The batteries last a lot longer than you'd think for something that's this small, and it's reliable. And I've put it through its paces in really cold weather and hot weather. I love the camera. I think we have like 4 or 5 of them. Fantastic. But, this guy, I think the triggering distance is like 50 feet or so. That's not that far away. So you got to be aware of how far away you keep this camera from the water source or from the food source or from the trail where you want to set it up. But you also don't want it to be right on the trail if you're trying to capture something that is really wary of things that humans set up. A brick-sized object strapped to a tree is going to look a little out of place. And if it's right by the trail, how could you miss that? I would not be surprised if in areas where there's a lot of Bigfoot activity, you'd find that there's a path going behind the camera. And I think that would not just be from Bigfoot, but from people as well. If people respect the fact that that's your camera, hopefully they'll just leave it alone and go behind it. But anyway, I think you really got to be careful. And that's another point, is that people will try and damage your trail cameras. If they're right there on the trail, some people will shoot the camera with a bow and arrow, with a gun. They'll slash the camera. They'll try and break it in some way. They'll try and steal it. It's just trashy behavior. And it's sad to see. And you'll see that everywhere nowadays. So I understand not liking if someone puts that up near your property especially where you walk, where, your wife or kids are at, or where you drive through. Yeah, that's not okay. But this often happens on public land or places where no one has any right to destroy your camera. That's just as much your right as it is anyone else's right to set up a camera, to set up a stand, a blind, anything. It's your land too, but people don't respect that and they'll try and break your stuff. So, not setting it right there on the trail is important. For deer and whatnot, if it's just a small game trail, you're in a pretty remote spot, yeah, you can do it absolutely. But I don't think you would get a lot of success setting it right there on the trail where everything can see it with Bigfoot. And that makes me think of an Expedition X episode. I think it had to do with Appalachian Mountains and feral people. And he had set up a trail camera right on the trail, just right there. At least that's what it looked like, right? I don't know the exact location they were at, so maybe it was more remote than I'd think. But it sure seemed like on a very prominent trail right there on a tree. He just strapped the camera up, but he left the strap hanging like this, so that way the breeze would interact with it. At least that's my memory of it. I've been trying to find that clip again and I just can't find it. So maybe I'm wrong. I hope I am. But if you're leaving the strap just hanging off the tree, flapping in the wind, that gathers a lot of attention. Just strapping it up and tying it up, the strap stands out because these straps, as great as they are, and these are great straps that came with the Guard Pro, by the way, I love them, they stand out. They don't match the color of the tree. They're large, they're very angular, which looks human, and it stands out. But then you leave it hanging there to flap in the wind, and you got a big problem there, folks. It's not going to blend in. So that's something that really annoyed me. You just can't set something up like that and then expect it to work well. I guess there is an advantage if it's at night and it's coming from the opposite direction. If you have it pointing along, here's the trail, you have it pointing in the same direction as the trail goes. It's off to the side of the trail just by a little bit. Something could walk right by it and not even know it's there. And that looks like what happened for one trail cam capture. And I'll share the picture here on screen that a few investigators looked at in the south. Some people think it's a porcupine, but really it doesn't look like one to me. It doesn't have a tail. And it's standing upright and moving at a fairly good clip to have that kind of motion blurred to it. And it doesn't look like it's small enough to be a porcupine. If you look at the leaves and sticks, it looks like it's large enough to be a human-sized creature. And porcupines aren't supposed to live there. So that's kind of interesting. But they did just kind of a cursory look at it. Didn't seem like they did any kind of size comparison, and then they just dropped it. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like they really did much with it. They did post a short months and months later that looked like it was just an excerpt from the show, but from their video, but that's it. So who knows? But in that case, the camera was pointing in the same direction that the creature was traveling, and so it likely didn't even see the camera there. And if you're thinking about it, if Sasquatch does move around, there will be a chance for them to go through an area that they haven't seen in a while. They may have forgotten some of the features of the landscape, and you may capture them going in the right direction for you to capture a picture of them. But that then makes me think that, if somebody got a picture of a Bigfoot in their favorite hunting spot, would they really want to talk about it? Because then people are going to want to go to their favorite hunting spot. They're going to know where this guy hunts. They're going to know where this guy sets up. They're going to know where he shot that big buck. There's going to be some issues with privacy for him because guys, they don't like to share their hunting spots. They don't like to share their fishing spots. And if this happened in their favorite hunting spot, I don't think he'd want to share that picture except anonymously. And even then, who do you trust to share that picture with? It's just difficult. And nowadays, you have to disregard it unless it has a strong background and you can investigate it in person because it's probably AI. So there's a big issue with AI. I don't like it. But That's something that you need to keep in mind too, folks. The other thing that we need to talk about is how trail cameras may carry your scent. If you're handling them like I am now, especially if you're setting up trail cameras, there's some guys who will set up trail cameras in front of peanut butter. Well, they're handling the peanut butter and then they turn on the trail camera. Now that trail camera smells like peanut butter. Why do you think the bears go after your camera if it smells like peanut butter? Or they'll take one fresh out of the box and set it up. Well, that's great, but have you ever smelled fresh plastic? It's pungent. This is not fresh, but I mean, you go up to it and sniff it, it stinks. If you have handled it for a long time, if your dogs have been near it, if you were filling up your truck and then afterwards you didn't wipe your hands or try and wash your hands at the gas station, you just got back into your truck and drove off, and then you were getting out into the woods and you're setting up your trail camera, it's going to smell like diesel or going to smell like gas or something. You could have your sweat on there. A lot of guys set them up when it's summertime. Well, guess what? For me, I pour sweat. It's a big mistake for me to go out there in summertime trying to set up trail cameras. It just does not work. So you're going to get some sort of scent on your trail cameras. Is that really something that you want? I'd be willing to say no. So keeping that in mind as well, scent is something that is very powerful. A lot of animals have a better sense of smell than I think we realize. Gorillas and chimps use scent quite a bit. There's been some newer studies on that, and I think we're realizing that they have a better sense of smell than we ever thought. I think we've put our filter onto them, so to speak. We think of them being just like us. Well, they can't smell any better than us. Or we think that we're better than them, so they must be a few steps down. Okay, yeah, so if we can smell something barely, they probably can't smell it at all. And although I can understand how, that's part of our psychology, we don't want to think of an animal being better than us. That would kind of hurt our ego, right? Still, I think they have a better sense of smell than we realize. A lot of animals rely on scent, and if you think about it, the environment would make it so Sasquatch would have to have a good sense of smell. Line of sight doesn't go very far. In Idaho, it's okay in parts, but even then, there's a lot of times where you just cannot see more than 20 feet in front of you. You can't. You cannot see more than 20, 30 feet in front of you. It's thick. And if you are dealing with predators, you have to be able to find them in some way, shape, or form before they find you. If you can't see them, and there's a lot of noise, you have water and you have wind making a lot of noise, you can't really rely on hearing so much. So what else do you have? Your sense of smell. And scent carries through the woods, and the wind carries really well too. Sometimes it's just a light breeze, but it will carry your scent a very long distance. So having a good sense of smell is something I think they possess. I think they'd have to possess it if they exist, right? So that's something that you need to keep in mind. They may very well be able to smell your trail camera, smell you when you're setting it up, and go, there's something up here. Another thing is that we tend to make our presence known while setting them up. Think of how many times, I do this too, driving in on a UTV or ATV. And you're walking your way in. You're breathing hard. You're hiking up quite a ways to get to the spot. You're maybe dragging some corn with you to go pour in front of a spot, or you're putting it in a deer feeder. A lot of guys make noise when they go in to set up a trail camera or go in to check in on a trail camera, or whenever they visit it. They may not even be looking at the camera, but they're going into the same spot and they're making a lot of noise. They're making their presence known. Oftentimes, guys are just wearing their good old, blue jeans. They aren't trying to blend in. They probably showered with their normal soap. It could be Head and Shoulders or something that, stinks a good bit. I've actually used Head and Shoulders and it helps my hair a good bit. But man, that stuff is strong. It is very, very, very perfumey. It affects even me sometimes. So I'm trying to use something else. I'm finding better soaps to use, because although I love my Descent soap for hunting season, it's just not good enough to get rid of any kind of grease or whatever, or the oils, right, on your skin or hair. You have to use something else instead. It's very minimal, and so that's great. But in the meantime, unless you're actually going out, don't use it, because it just doesn't work as well as you'd like. But you have some bar soap that works. I'm trying out Duke Cannon's big ass bar soap. I actually like it so far, by the way. It's not nearly as pungent as Head and Shoulders is, but if you're using that kind of soap, when I say that kind, I mean Head and Shoulders, or shampoo, right? You kind of stink a little bit. So there's another scent to think about. I remember Russell Acord on Expedition Bigfoot, which we've kind of found out is a little bit of a fake show, right? At least in some ways. I'm not 100% on how fake, but there's some aspects about it that they faked entirely, and I have a hard time trusting it anymore. But he was talking about what kind of aftershave he uses out there. Excuse me? You're going to wear that backpack, you're going to try and be quiet, try and snake around, but you're going to wear aftershave? You're kidding me? Maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but I remember him talking about what kind of aftershave he uses. Oh yeah, this is some good stuff. I like that. It's like, what? You're kidding me? That's a lot of people wear smelly stuff and they don't even realize it, because they become nose blind. So not only do we tend to make our presence known driving in and stomping in and talking with somebody else. That's a big issue I had, is I didn't even realize how loud I was being with the person I was out there with.
Oh. I thought you put it on the other side of the creek.
No, that's where it was last year, and then we moved it over. Here are about 10 feet.
Are you done talking?
Yeah.
You gotta come over this way. Follow the trail.
Okay.
Look over at me. To the tree.
Okay.
Look at the ground.
All right.
You can be really loud, and of course anything's going to know you're there. And then you wear something that's smelly, or a lot of things that are smelly, and yeah, your presence is going to be known pretty quickly. So that's another big one there. Another thing I want to talk about real quick, and this is kind of applicable to the next video that we'll do about Bigfoot and trail cameras, but I figured it would be worth mentioning here. And that is that trail cameras make noises sometimes. There are some trail cameras that are advertised as being quiet or silent. I don't think you'd find a lot of issues with modern trail cameras as much as the older ones. Some of those were big, by the way. They really stuck out. You can't act like something wouldn't see that. But they would make noises. Another point is that, and this one does kind of apply to the next video we'll do, like I talked about before, but some of them make a lot of noise. Now, I think you'll find that most of the newer ones are going to be okay. Some of them are specifically advertised as being quiet or silent. Again, who knows how accurate the advertising is. But with the old ones, I think especially, I think you'd find that they made a lot of noise. And sometimes that electronic hum that you'll hear from different pieces of electronic equipment, and I think you would find that some trail cameras do make that noise. If you don't know exactly what it is, it could give you the implication of being a hornet's nest. I've been stung enough times by hornets, wasps, yellow jackets, to where I want nothing to do with them unless I can kill them. I hate them. I was stung right here on the inside of my finger not that long ago. I guess it was already a few years. Can you believe it? But anyway, my whole hand blew up like the Michelin Man's hand. Or if you took a rubber glove and you blew air into it and held it, that kind of look. And it felt absolutely painful. Imagine that pain, and you were probably close, but you may not have it. It was just horrible. Felt like my skin was going to explode. I hate hornets. But if you're going near something that makes an electronic hum of some sort, I could see them confusing it for being a yellow jacket nest and leaving it the hell alone. And I don't blame them one bit. That's just a thought, right? But it's something to consider. And some of the older cameras were on film, Who knows what kind of shutter noises some of these cameras made. It just would be very abrasive and it would not blend in. So I think you're really looking at the older trail cameras, because one of the arguments is we've had trail cameras out there for so many years. How many exactly, I don't know, but oh so many years. You think we would have gotten Bigfoot on camera by now. Well, you look at the size of some of those massive bricks that they'd set up on a tree. They don't blend in one bit, and they also made a lot of noise, some of them. So be aware of that. Another one is that they may be able to see 850 nanometer IR, and that's what this guy uses. It's a solid performing method of illuminating your subject. It's infrared, so, overall, you aren't spooking the game too much. It is easy to see. Typically, the video quality is better with 850 nanometer because it's just a little bit easier for a camera to pick up. But I've found a lot of animals where I've set up this camera. It was right at eye level too, which probably doesn't help, but a lot of animals reacted to the flash of the camera. Now, it is possible that they also heard noises from the camera and reacted to it. But given I didn't see them react in the daytime, not really, but I did see them react very, very, very noticeably at night, I have to say it's probably because of the red glow from these bulbs. 850 nanometer IR bulbs glow a bright red. They're very easy to see. And sometimes they'll put little filters on here so that way it dims them a little bit. They don't look quite so bright. But it still looks like a red-eyed Bigfoot staring at you. Those bright red eyes? Well, there's a whole lot more of them on this guy, but still, it looks very aggressive and scary, and it spooks game. If you're following a deer along a trail and you see it freak out, especially if you can see, sorry about that, especially if you can see the light itself illuminating the area, but even if you can't, if you see the deer walk past a certain point and then it freaks out, you'd probably want to walk up behind that tree, because that's usually what people attach a trail camera to, and just kind of look at it and see what's there. And you probably look at it and go, I'm not going to do anything with that. I'm going to go this way. If you're as intelligent as they would have to be alive and avoid us for as long as they have. Maybe not quite human level intelligence, but maybe just a little bit under that. I think you're dealing with something intelligent. I don't see why they would want to go right up to it and investigate it. Right in front of it, like deer do. But that's up to you to reason on. But if they see the red glow like I can physically, it would probably be pretty intimidating to look at. And if it does kind of walk through the bushes and it sees this red glow, it may be shaking the bushes a little bit, so that's why the camera picked it up and it sees that red glow. It may stay behind the bush trying to stay hidden, kind of like a toddler will. If I cover my eyes like this, you can't see me kind of idea. Especially with tree peeking, it does seem like they have a little bit of that toddler-like mentality of if I hide most of my body, you won't see me, right? Some dogs will do that too. It's really cute. But if they have that kind of mentality, that would explain why they try and hide, even though they don't really hide easily. They're too big. They think they're hidden. Well, with the trail camera, only recently did we get 4K video quality, and even then, there's some improvements that could be made. It's not like this. Believe it or not, what I'm filming this with is on 1080p, but it has such good video quality that it looks like 4K. Most trail cameras do not have this kind of video quality, and for it, you'd have to really shell out a lot of money. And I find it interesting that most of Reconix's cameras don't have this kind of video quality, but yet they're one of the most reliable cameras out there. The higher resolution, higher specs that you can get, typically the worse the performance. I think GoPro's had this issue for a number of years. The more you try and push out of something that's small, that needs to be basic to work really well, the more you're going to suffer. Although my GoPro Hero 11 here has been great, I have heard some people having issues with them, because I think they pack so much into the camera that it gets to be a little constrictive on the overall usage for the camera. It just overwhelms the processors. It just is too much. I can't give you a technical explanation, but I think the more features you try and pack into a small body, the harder time it's going to have working. 4K video, having all sorts of audio equipment built into your camera, the 3 or 4 different sensors, 2 different lenses. I think you're just doing too much. It's neat, but I think it's too much. And even then, again, you take 4K video quality, it's not really 4K in the sense that when you zoom in on something, it still looks really blurry. And frankly, that's going to happen for anything filmed, unless you actually have a zoom lens like my Sony there does. You're going to have an issue with seeing something in the distance. If you try and zoom in digitally, just cropping in, you're going to get a level of noise that's just hard to deal with. But trail camera cameras are just not as good as what I'm dealing with here, my Sony Z90V, which I've been really happy with so far. But anyway, if you see something in the bushes, you're not going to be able to get a very good look at it. You may think that it might just be the wind moving the tree, especially if you don't see anything right there in front of the camera. If you're just scrolling by, you see the thumbnails, you may not realize anything's there. But if it doesn't even really move very much, it's just sitting there and watching, you may not see it. A pair of eyes and, brown or black fur may blend in enough to where you won't see it, especially if it's at the right angle. It doesn't give off the eye shine because it's not hitting the eyes square on. I don't know. You just may not be able to notice anything's there. And if they know what that is, they'll try and leave it alone. If they see something similar to that, it may just make them worried enough where they'll leave it alone. But the red glow from a trail camera, to get back to the main point here, is very bright. It stands out. It does not blend in. And the no glow bulbs, the 940 nanometer range, are great, but they don't quite illuminate everything as well. You can't see as far out. It's not as clear a video at night. There's been some improvements, but you take a hit trying to use something that's this stealthy. You don't see the glow at all, but you are dealing with something that doesn't have as good a video quality at night. So, you have the advantage of better video, but potentially scaring something off, or worse quality video, but you aren't going to scare off anything in front of it. Which one do you go with? And no-glow cameras are often more expensive too. So that's something to keep in mind. But if they are able to see the 850 nanometer, especially when guys are out there doing their Bigfoot hunting, that's the IR that they use. Glows bright red. They'll probably see that red glow and leave it alone. Nothing out in nature produces a red glow at night, so they'd probably want to just leave it alone and get the hell out of Dodge. I don't see why people would think that using a red flashlight will keep Bigfoot around. I mean, it may be less intrusive. It doesn't travel as far at night. The bandwidth just doesn't have the same kind of power as a bluish LED light, but it still penetrates through the bushes and the leaves, and you can still see it. I just don't see how that's stealthy. Anyway, the cameras are often obvious looking and in plain sight. We kind of talked about that before, but when they're strapped right to a tree, you can't help but notice that. And if you are moving slowly enough through an area, you see it at a distance, you may try and circle around and behind. That's what predators do. This is one of the reasons why I believe Bigfoot is almost strictly a carnivore. Just heard something above me. Anyway, no ninjas as far as I can tell. Well, that's good. But that's why I believe Bigfoot is strictly a carnivore, is because their behavior seems to match up with one. When you look at omnivores like bears, they tend to just walk around. They don't seem to have any worry about ambling around and just being casual and walking around without anybody noticing them. They don't seem to be wary of trail cameras at all. You look at plant eaters, and although they will be more wary if you're looking at animals like elk, oftentimes if they see something that interests them, they'll perk up, they'll kind of walk up towards it and try and get a better look at it. But a carnivore, if it sees something that really captures its interest, especially if it wonders if it's prey and is watching it or not, it'll try and circle around behind it or hit it from the sides and investigate it that way. I think of what Alan Grant talked about in Jurassic Park, they'll hit you at the sides. Well, that's not untrue. Predators don't like facing their prey head on. And if it captures its attention and makes it wonder, what are you? It may just go to the effort to walk all the way up and behind it and catch it off guard. And when you're on a tree and you're clearly facing one direction, you aren't behind the tree, you're in front of the tree. It doesn't take an intelligent creature to realize that it's looking this way. So you could just sneak up right behind it. And go away. Just walk the other way. Or kind of look at it from the side and go, yeah, I don't want anything to do with you, and walk away. So I think you'd find that Bigfoot is a carnivore primarily. I think during the harvest season for apples and peaches, they'll go in there and try and eat. But I think for the most part, they're a meat eater. I think that explains the lack of poop. I think it explains their mentality and their behavior. I found big plant eaters like moose, they just don't care. And the smaller plant eaters tend to freak out and run away. And then they'll kind of walk back and they'll walk straight to the camera and look at it. Predators don't seem to do that. If they know it's there, and if it catches their attention, catches them off guard, if they notice it, they'll try and sneak in behind it. That's something that I think if you talk to enough hunters and ask them if they've heard anything walking up behind them while in a blind, but they never got to see what it was, they might just say yes. And I think if you ask enough questions, you may be able to figure out if it's a Bigfoot or not. I think if Bigfoot's real, that they've done that before. I just don't think it's a big enough deal for most people to want to talk about it. They probably don't even realize that it could be a Bigfoot. Or they think, well, it's probably just a deer, or oh, it's probably a bear or a squirrel, because that happens, of course. You can't act like every time something happens, it must be Bigfoot. But I think it has happened before. So that's something to think about there, too. Let's see here. Which ones have I gone over? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Only got 2 left. One of them is that camera lenses often fog up. They do fog up quite easily. And then you can't really see anything out of them, especially if you're in a low-lying area near a creek. When it gets cold out, you're going to have issues with that. And in the early morning, with the dew and fog rolling in, you're going to have issues with the camera lens fogging up or misting up. So you need to do something to prevent that. And that's the second point. To prevent them from fogging up, you have to put something smelly on it. Cat crap and Rain-X are 2 things that I recommend. And when I say cat crap, I'm talking about an actual brand from Walmart. I'm not talking about taking, Mitten's poop and rubbing it on your camera, of course. I'm talking about an actual product that comes in a little, container. It's not very big. And it's kind of a waxy-like substance that you just kind of rub on the lens. Then you take your lens cloth and you just kind of rub it on there, and there you go. You're good.
Now, the reason why that's important is early in the morning or really late at night, you'll start to get dew and it'll fog up the glass. This is some Rain-X. I got this from Home Depot. It's meant just for glass, which is what that is. We'll see if it helps, and then I'm going to be spraying it down with some scent killer. So let's see here. Let's actually get some dunk off there.
And now you have a hydrophobic layer on there. Or you spray it onto your rag, and then you use the rag to wipe down the lens. But either way, you do have to put something smelly on there, and once again, you have scent in the woods. And scent carries, and scent doesn't just go away. Scent can last for a very long time if it's something that's really pungent. And just because we can't smell it doesn't mean something with a better sense of smell or something that's just more in tune with its sense of smell would not be able to smell it. All right, guys, just wanted to interrupt for just a second here and let you know that the shirt I'm wearing, if you guys want to get one, it's the Starry Night Sasquatch t-shirt. I really like it. It's from an Etsy page called Bigfoot Bazaar. I will leave a link down below to their Etsy page where you can pick one up. If you do, let them know I sent you. I'll also leave a link to their Instagram page. I really like this shirt. It is a Gildan Ultra Cotton, if I'm not mistaken. It's a XL. It's a little big on me, and it fits very nicely.
I like that. I like having a shirt that's a little big rather than a little small. Nowadays, it's hard to know what size to get, but I like the shirt. And I figured I'd give them a bit of a shout out because they're very small. They just started out recently. So if you guys want to go support them, please feel free to do so in the link down below. I don't make anything off of it, but I thought I'd give them a shout out. All right, let's dive right back in. Here we go. In another video, we're going to talk about solutions to some of these problems. We already discussed the Rain-X and how to keep your lens from fogging up, and we'll go over that probably again in that video as well, just in case nobody caught that or didn't see this video. But how I camouflage the trail cameras, how I've been working on hiding them. I'm working on that, so it's probably not going to happen for another year or so, but that is something I will do down the road. Just kind of discussing how you hide them, where you should set them up to get the best results. Because frankly, I believe trail cameras are the future of Bigfooting. I think they have a lot of promise. If you think about it, you can set this guy up and you can have it out there for months on end. 24 hours, 7 days a week, all day, every day, from dusk till dawn, and you have it working. And that's great. I found that I'll be in a spot that has a lot of activity and I'll wait and I'll wait and I'll wait and I won't see anything. But the trail camera is always there, always ready, quiet as can be, waiting for something to walk in front of it. And when it does, it captures it up. It takes a picture of it, takes a video of it, and it captures it for you to look at. And I think that's incredible. You don't need to sit there and wait for something. You can spend your time doing anything you want. This guy's doing all the work for you, and I love that. But you do need to set them up properly. You do need to try and take some precautions. If in 50 years we don't get a photo or video of Bigfoot that's very reliable or doesn't look like it's legitimate, then yeah, maybe Bigfooting is dead. But I think there's a lot of promise to Bigfooting at this point. I think a lot of people have kind of, not to be rude, but phoned it in, frankly. You look at Bigfooting TV shows, which have kind of set the standard for a lot of Bigfooters that are kind of interested in the topic, right? Yelling,
"I think there's a squatch in these woods."
Just like, shh. Can't help but feel like a librarian. Be quiet. Yelling their heads off, stomping, stomping, stomping. When you find out there's 18 camera and audio men following them around at all times, of course they're loud. No one's going to find a single thing. You look at Monster Quest. I love that show, but they're setting up a big thing of bait right there, and then there's a big trail camera sitting there on the tree just watching it. It's like, you really expect something to go up to that? You see guys using drones. Well, drones are great, but with all the forest cover, you can't really see anything with it, even with the best thermal technology. Guys using the infrared at night. If you're using the wrong type, it glows a bright red, and I don't see why anything would want to walk up to that or just stick around and watch you get closer and closer as it hears you walking towards it with this bright red light. If you are using a big bright red flashlight, I don't see why anything would want to stay around and watch you get closer to it. It knows you're a human and you have something that sticks out like a sore thumb that could be a weapon for all it knows. Why would it want to be anywhere near you? Well, I don't see why it would. And with the sound blasting, now you're making sounds out there that a hiker could confuse for a Bigfoot. How many of these audio, sightings have just been another Bigfooter making noises, or have just been another Bigfooter sound blasting? And when you listen to the sound blasts that they'll do, they sound warped, they sound garbled, they sound distorted. It has background noises that don't blend in with the forest background noises in that area. It sounds so out of place, and you don't even know what the calls are even saying, or if those calls are even real. We suppose they are, but we don't know that. There's just so many issues with the methods that people use for Bigfooting. I just don't see it. I just really don't. So I think if people apply some more caution to it, they don't just go running out there with cameras trying to film, but they genuinely try and do their best to be quiet, to be camouflaged, to be using the right type of equipment, to set up trail cameras quietly with wearing the right kind of equipment, using the right kind of equipment, trying to be scent free and just as invisible as you can be, trying to be as much of a ghost as you can be, for lack of a better word, just floating through the woods and gone. No one knew you were there. then I think you'd have a good opportunity. But even then, you're still dealing with the possibility of wildfires going through and killing your cameras. You're still dealing with the opportunity of flooding coming through and killing your cameras. You're dealing with people possibly going through and killing your cameras. You still deal with a lot of issues when you're setting something up and leaving it out there for a long period of time. But I think if people do it right, you'd probably have good results. So I hope that makes sense. And again, I'm not trying to criticize people. I understand if people disagree with me, but when you look at how people have done a lot of research, and I know I've talked about how TV shows have gone about it, and that doesn't necessarily mean that actual Bigfoot researchers have done the same thing. But when you look at it, a lot of people follow what the TV shows have set forth as an example. And actually, I've seen even more people just sitting around a campfire hoping Bigfoot comes up to them. I get the idea and the logic behind that. If Bigfoot is a shy creature and people have had encounters while they're doing something like that, then sure, you might get Bigfoot on camera by surprise. But I think it's been done enough times where something was going to happen, it would have happened by now. I don't see that being a logical, or maybe not logical, but a viable option at this point. I mean, you can try it. I'd be willing to try it. Who doesn't love camping out and making s'mores and just kind of talking around a campfire? But it just doesn't seem like a good way of finding Bigfoot unless you do something different from everybody else. You try and change the game. And that's what my shorts on YouTube, they're not, physical pants shorts, but that's what they're called on YouTube. It's a short video. It's kind of in the shape of an Instagram reel. As you're scrolling along on Instagram, you'll see different videos. It's that size of video that YouTube has made specifically for their platform, where you can scroll by. It's a minute or less in length, and you'll just get a little snippet of something. Well, I found that shorts tend to show up far more easily for me on the YouTube algorithm than my actual videos do. So I'll just come out with a 1-minute short talking about an idea that I have on how to find Bigfoot. There's a lot more explaining that could go on in there, but I try and keep them very short and to the point. Some of them are very out there. Some of them are much more grounded. But I found that people like listening to them, people like watching them, people like interacting on those videos, and I do believe some of them hold a lot of promise. And some of them may have some. I don't know. I want to find out. Some of them I may try, some of them I may not. I'm thinking of the being aggressive with Bigfoot tree structures. That one got a lot of views, and a lot of people got really angry about that one. Same with deer driving and Bigfoot. Because, you could get killed. Well, that could be. I don't know. We'll have to try and find that out, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell. I'm not sure I really want to try those, but I'm putting them out as, this is an idea. No one's talked about it before. What do you guys think? Do you think that could actually work? It gets people involved, and I think it's worthwhile. But if you guys want to try any of them, carefully, don't hold me legally responsible if you get hurt. Maybe just try the simpler, safer ones. It may be worth your while. I don't know. Anyway, guys, please like this video. Please share this video by copying the link down below from the share button. You just click that and copy the link. Wherever you feel it is appropriate, if you want to share it to somebody or share it wherever you feel it's appropriate, please do. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel and also subscribe to the Idaho Bigfoot newsletter, where you will get notified every time I come out with a new video. And I'll also post informational posts there, some of which I've posted on Instagram in the past. But this way, you get them right there. It's free of charge. You just get an email notification. You may need to check your spam folder, but this way you'll see posts that you would otherwise have to join Instagram for. And if you don't want to join Instagram, you can just get them there. I feel like that would be very much worth your while. I'm still getting used to it. Sometimes the hyperlinks just won't work and it causes some confusion, but I'm working on it. And I feel like it's a nice way of circumventing YouTube, because YouTube does not like to give out notifications for my channel. They try and shadow ban me. So if you guys want to subscribe there, you just put in your email address where you want to get notifications. You'll just get an email every time I come out with something there. And I feel like that would be very much worth your while. And please comment down below your thoughts. All right, I'll see you guys next time, and let me know if you like this style of video where I sit down and just yammer on for hours on end. I'd like to know. I'm willing to do it again. I love talking to the camera. So thank you guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.